been noted we're somewhat young in a lot of areas, but I think that's a positive as well. There's a really hungry group that want to get better, that want to come together as an offense, and then, like you mentioned, even more so as a football team.
Hi everybody, I'm Missi Matthews. Welcome to Steelers Live and welcome inside the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. That was offensive coordinator Matt Canada. We'll hear from him just a little bit later in the show. But talking draft here today and joining me to break it all down is Mike Prisuta of the DVE Morning Show. He was live out in Las Vegas. We also have Matt Williamson of Steelers Nation Radio and one of his counterparts, Hall of Famer, I can't believe we put you last, Arthur Moats. So thanks guys for joining us. It doesn't seem possible, but a week ago today, the Steelers started the 2022 draft. Obviously, we know the first selection they made was quarterback Kenny Pickett. But I want to talk broadly first, and Triv, you can start for us. Just general thoughts on what they were able to accomplish with their 7 picks.
I think there's no question they're better coming out of it than they were going into it, Missy. But I think a lot of teams are probably thinking that way, probably just about all of them. I think they've got some intriguing guys. I wasn't surprised they took a quarterback. I thought Mike Tomlin kind of tipped their hand on that when he did the Monday presser with Kevin Colbert the week of the draft, and he compared, I think the phrase he used was chopping up the quarterback position the way they had chopped up the running back position a year ago. To me, that meant they were going to take a quarterback. It was just a question of which one. They're all in on Kenny Pickett, and if they think he is that good, I say go for it. I can remember back in 2004 when they drafted Ben. I didn't think he was going to necessarily contribute in 2004, and they didn't think he was necessarily going to contribute in 2004. But then Charlie Batch got hurt, and then Tommy Maddox got hurt, and the rest is history. So you can never have too many quarterbacks, and it looks like they're really well stocked at that position now. Coming out of it, I know they had limited resources, limited number of picks with which to work, but I've still got some questions about defensive line and inside linebacker.
Matt, what about you?
So, some big picture thoughts, not even incorporating the players they picked necessarily. This is a team that now has a ton of cap space a year from this season, the next offseason, and going forward, the cap no longer should be a problem. You got a quarterback room that's incredibly cheap and young, and presumably their best days are ahead of them from that room in general. This is also a team that played the 3rd most rookie snaps a year ago with all of this process in mind of growing together as a youthful unit, especially on offense. I know we're going to talk about the offense, but it's incredibly young on that side of the ball. So again, you think their best football's ahead of them, and for the places that stumble, you can go outside the organization to help them going forward.
Yeah, man, I was going to agree with you on that. I do think they got very much younger on the offensive side of the ball. I think they're also very interesting. When you're talking about that quarterback position right now, I mean, when you hear Coach Tomlin and Kevin Colbert talk about it being a legitimate competition, I don't think any of us are surprised by that, because that group, they are very similar in terms of the talent level and different levels of expectations for those guys. But I'm super excited about these wide receivers. And, I'm a defensive guy. So for me to be excited, that says something right there. But when I look at George Pickens and Calvin Austin, I think that, number one, George Pickens makes that receiver room in terms of the competition at the top end very interesting because of his size and speed and just big play capabilities. But then when you talk about Calvin Austin, I just think that he has that chance to be special in the slot with his quickness. And we saw the, record-breaking 40 time that he ran as well, man. So for me, I'm just excited about those two guys in particular.
Arthur, that is a perfect segue because, as I promised, we have Matt Canada talking about the 2 wide receivers the Steelers draft this past weekend.
And Kelvin's a guy that's obviously electric with the football, can really go make some dynamic plays, and a guy through the draft process that we were all really excited about. And the fact that he was still available at the time we had the pick was great for us. And I'm excited to get around him here next week at minicamp and watch him do what he can. He had a lot of explosive plays on film. George Pickens is also explosive. Again, mentioned that, earlier at different times. I mean, a guy prior to his injury, probably projected maybe the #1 receiver coming out in this class, and we still feel like he is that guy. And I think his explosion, his ability to make plays down the field, we're really, really excited about having him, join a real talented wideout room and a real talented offense. But we're excited about him coming and being part of it.
Troy, we know the Steelers lost a number of wide receivers during free agency, so this was a position they had to add to. Are you surprised or not surprised they took 2 in this draft?
Not at all. I think a lot of people anticipated that, and I'm with Matt Canada on Pickens, a healthy Pickens, maybe being the best of the bunch. Now, it was a great class, and it's been a great class the last several years, and I imagine that would continue. But I think this guy is special, and if you just go back to the national championship game, he only caught 1 pass against Alabama. I've said this on a couple of these shows because it left such a burning impression in my mind. 52 yards down the seam. He beats press coverage off the line of scrimmage, runs down the field, full extension for the ball, and then after he hauls it in, he twists his body and tucks it so that when he hits the ground, it doesn't get away. You've probably seen the Twitter clips that have been floating around where he's just knocking cornerbacks on their backside and giving them the sure sign. He's a fiery kid. He's a competitive kid. He's probably got to mature a little bit, but who among us at that age did not have to mature a little bit? I think he can be phenomenal. Other than the quarterback, he might be the guy that winds up defining this class. Whenever you pick a quarterback 20th overall, the class is going to sink or swim on how he does. But special player, and if he's healthy and he is what they think he is, he's going to be a tremendous value on the second round.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you were saying too, in terms of the questions around, you need a little bit more maturity. As long as the productivity is there, I don't think any of us are going to have any complaints. Whenever we start to worry about, the antics, whether you're shushing guys or doing something after the play, it's always based on, were you productive during the snap? Did you do something to contribute positively? And at the same time, make sure you're not crossing that line of drawing a flag, but
getting thrown out or squirting a water bottle. Yeah, just dial it back a little bit, little bit.
Just a little bit, but the productivity for him has been consistent, barring the injury. So as long as that stays true to form, I think he'll be all right.
Matt, you're mentioning the salary cap space the Steelers are going to have moving forward down the years because of what they have. And on offense, there's a possibility that every starter could be 25 years or younger this season, which just seems crazy, what we have seen in the past years with the Steelers. So how do you think things will shake out, especially with, they already talked about Pickens, but Calvin Austin being added to a room with Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson?
Yeah, I love these 2 picks, and for all the reasons these guys just said about Pickens, but to add on to it, he's also a very, very good blocker and very willing blocker. He's also maybe the only one in this class, and it was a very good receiver class, that's really a prototypical on the line of scrimmage, ex-receiver, old school, the way you draw it up type of guy. And those guys are harder to find now. Austin was probably my favorite pick of the draft, though, to be very honest. I thought he would go at least a round earlier, and he's very explosive. He's very fast. But the thing about him that I think people might not realize, although I do think he'll play out of the slot a lot at the next level, is over 90% of his catches at college came as an outside receiver, not as a slot receiver. And he's one of the few small guys that handles press man coverage very well. So to me, those 2 little nuggets separate him from some of the gadget guys you've seen before.
All right, let's move over to the other side of the ball. Arthur, we'll start with you in terms of defense. Only 2 players, DeMarvin Leal and also Mark Robinson selected. What do you like or not like, and what do you think about these guys?
Well, first off, I don't like the fact that we had to wait this long to talk defense, okay? I don't like when we do that. I know we always talk offense. We took a quarterback, and that's the prom king. I get it. But defense matters. And to me, DeMarvin, I think that he has a chance to be a really good player in this league. Now, coming out, he's a little bit of his tweener based on his size, but I do think that you can add a little bit of weight on him, and he'll project right inside to what you think of in terms of Stephon Tuitt and Cam Hayward. I really enjoy his pass rush package. I think that he's an explosive player off the line of scrimmage. I just think that he has to be more consistent, and that's something that, when you're getting in a room with a Cam Hayward type, when you're sitting next to a Tyson Alualu, those guys are consistent contributors and they're high pedigree guys. So I do feel like you're going to get a positive impact on DeMarvin. Now, when you talk about Mark at the end of the draft, for me, man, I look at him and I say, I like the fact that he can play in space. I think that he's a better zone dropper and blitzer than he is per se a man-to-man coverage guy. But more importantly, he's going to give you special teams help. And that's also something that we cannot overlook, especially knowing that the offense is going through a little bit of a transition. So it could take them a little bit longer to get up to speed or to the level that we're anticipating them being at. So you're going to really have to rely on defense and special teams. So for me, I like the Mark Robinson pickup as well.
Is the offense transitioning? What is this transition you speak of?
It's called optimism. All right, just roll with it.
No, I like it, but yeah, transition like at warp speed, right? It's unrecognizable from 3 years ago. Here's the thing that is going to have my attention at training camp, and it's Matt Canada is going to be in his second year, but I think it's really going to be his first year because, guys, we were at training camp last year, and we saw a lot of stuff in August at Heinz Field that we never saw again, or we saw just very, very infrequently. I think Mason Rudolph had talked about this a time or two during the season. The offense was kind of a mash between what Ben liked to do and what Matt Canada wanted to do. And I think, Ben at his stage of his career where he wasn't really a Matt Canada offense quarterback. And now I think he's got two choices, Canada does, for that. I really got a kick out of Mike Tomlin talking about Calvin Austin as a, quote, jet sweeper, unquote. I mean, I think you're going to see Canada doing what Canada wants to do with the kind of guys that fit that system. And I can't wait to see what that looks like in a game because I've seen it a little bit in practice and I'm intrigued.
Well, talking about Mark Robinson, who Arthur brought up, started as a running back, transitioned to a linebacker. I believe Kevin Colbert said he was a triple transfer guy, to quote him as well. And when I had a chance to catch up with defensive coordinator Terrell Austin, he said that transitioning from offense to defense may help him.
It's funny you ask that because when you watch him in terms of the run game and getting to runs, he gets to runs, and it's probably because he knows what they are and where they're going in the blocking schemes because he's run behind those for so many years, and that is a unique trait. Where he'll do like most rookies, most rookie linebackers struggle in coverage with the different types of coverage, the amount of coverages that go on in the NFL, but I do expect that he'll pick it up. And while he's learning to do all those things, that he'll be a dynamite special teams player for us.
All right, Arthur, our captain defense, answering all of our questions for us. I think a lot of people, if the Steelers would have taken a DB, they wouldn't have been shocked as well. So do you feel like there still needs to be more help on the way for this defense before we get to the regular season?
Yeah, I do think that that's the case. And we're already seeing that. Obviously, with the DeMonte signing, I think that helps the defensive side of the ball. As a whole, when you look at the cornerback room in particular, we have guys that we're confident in terms of Akello, in terms of Levi Wallace, and obviously Cam Sutton. But at the same time, we're looking at that group and we're wondering, can one of those guys emerge to be that true alpha? Or do you need to go out there and, outsource that person in there? But to me, I think that when you lean on the side of how Akello finished the season, when you look at how when Levi Wallace stepped in for injured Tre'Davious White in Buffalo, both of those guys played at a high level. And I do think that for the Steelers, they can be a little bit more confident in those guys going forward. So yes, you can see them in terms of the Steelers potentially adding somebody on defense, but at the same time, I don't think that they have to, lose their mind or go out of character in terms of how they acquire that player.
Along those lines, Arthur, I'd be in the market. I know Melvin Ingram didn't work out around here, but there's a lot of those names that are a little up in age that you could play partial snaps with at that outside linebacker edge position and that have been around the block. I would be calling those guys up, and I might see if Joe Hayden wants to come back.
I'm all for the Joe Hayden move. You know that now. Jump man. Now, it would be interesting, though, just because with Joe, we know he's a veteran presence. We know he's an established corner. But at the same time, how does the hierarchy work now? Does he come back and he is still the main guy, or are we trying to transition to the younger guys in terms of Akello and Levi being more of the cornerback one? So I think that part would be interesting, but I'm all for a return for Joe Hayden, baby.
Yeah, that would be up to them, wouldn't it, Arthur? Let's just say for the sake of argument, Hayden would come back. I mean, you don't cede that title. Somebody takes it from you, right? So
I would guarantee him that.
Yeah.
You can't guarantee him that, right?
All right, I think everybody went through and told us their favorite pick at some point. So let's do some quick hitters. I want to know. You didn't?
I didn't.
Which one was yours?
Yeah, you told us Pickens.
No, you asked me about the wide receivers. I said he has a chance to be the most productive.
Okay.
You didn't ask me my favorite.
I bet I know who it is.
All right, we're going to start over then. Okay, give me your favorite pick, Triv. You get to go first.
Honor Hayward.
Really?
Oh, that's weird. Why is that?
Here's why. All right, you guys all know I went to Michigan State. Let's take that out of the equation just for the sake of this discussion. Let's say he went to generic U. If you watch the guy go to generic U and struggle initially to find his way, and then decide eventually generic U is not for me, I'm going in the transfer portal, and then deciding, you know what, the grass isn't always greener, I'm going back to generic U and stick it out. And then if you watched him help put a 2-win team on his shoulders and carry it to 12 wins and carry it to a Peach Ball championship and be that guy that can play a number of positions well and do whatever it takes, whether that's making a play in the passing game or do the dirty work that helps spring a running back for, 1,600 and something yards throughout the course of the season. And if he had a brother on your team who's a multiple-time All-Pro and trending toward becoming one of the popular players in Steelers history, that would be a pretty good story, wouldn't it? Even if he went to generic U.
I'm just here for the training camp
he's a
fight.
returner. Don't forget, he's a return man as well. Special teams matters. Special teams matters, all right?
Arthur, how many practices into training camp do we see a Hayward on Hayward scrum?
Oh, man, I'm hoping we get that within the first 2 days. In fact, if that took place during the conditioning test, I'm all for it.
Hey, that's got to be the first backs on backers, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, Cam doesn't usually partake in that, but I think we make a special exception and line the two of them. And maybe
absolutely has to happen.
Maybe 3 reps, right? Instead of the standard 2.
All right, Matt, we'll start with you for this one. Best value pick for the Steelers this draft.
Pickens. I mean, I was shocked that Austin lasted as long as he did, but I can really make the case that Pickens turns out to be the best receiver in this draft class. I'm not predicting it. I'm not trying to look at the world through black and gold colored glasses. I just think that with his prototypical traits, early breakout age, what he did as an 18-year-old in the SEC, we may look back and kind of like when DK Metcalf fell this late in his draft and people were like, why did somebody take Andy Isabella ahead of him? And, why would somebody like that fall? I think we might have that same conversation in a couple of years about Pickens.
Triv?
Pickens, for everything Matt said, I was told that at the Combine, the Georgia players, and by the way, there were 15 of those guys drafted. It's a record for one school for a 7-round draft. They've been doing that since 1994. I was told those guys were asked who among the Bulldog crew is going to be the most successful in the NFL, and Pickens' teammates consistently mentioned Pickens' name. I think he's got phenomenal upside. It was unfortunate for him, the injury he suffered last spring, and all he had to do to get back on the field, and he only played 4 games, but maybe that's why he was available as long as he was. The Steelers got a guy who caught, I think, 5 catches last season. He might be the best receiver in the draft.
Arthur, agree, or do you have somebody else in mind?
Oh, man, I'm following suit. I mean, how could you not be excited about George Pickens? Like you said, if it wasn't for him tearing his ACL in March of last year, we're not even having this conversation because more than likely he's not even available to us.
Top 10, right?
Absolutely. That's what his game is. That's what it had been up until the ACL tear. And on top of that, it's still so remarkable that he tore it in March and still was able to get back on the field this season, something that he said was a goal of his. So for me, man, yeah, it's a no-brainer. He has that high ceiling. He has everything that you want, the prototypical size. He's coming in as a defined X receiver. To me, yeah, it's hard to pick somebody else.
All right, so is it fair to say you all would say Pickens is going to have the biggest impact out of this draft class?
It's very fair. Matter of fact, you can say it with my blessing.
Well, hey, listen, I don't like to put words in your mouth. I just want to make sure that I didn't have to ask you.
You want to hear it from us, but yeah, I think that's a layup. Love that guy. Love that pick.
All right. Well, rookie minicamp taking place next weekend doesn't even seem possible. Also on Thursday, May 12th at 8 p.m., the Steelers' 2022 schedule will be announced. Mike Prisuta will be joining me to break all of that down for you, as you heard from both Canada and
17 games, right?
Yeah. We'll write them down for you, I promise.
6 of them in the division?
Yes. Oh, my God.
Maybe
we're going to have to get somebody else to fill it. I don't know. Matt filled in for you for the draft, and he did a pretty good job. So just saying, Triv.
Hey, the game always gets younger, Missy. They'll come for you someday, too.
I hope not. You heard from both coordinators today. We are going to have much more from both of them coming up next week in the Standard, so make sure you tune in for that as well. Guys, thanks so much. It's been fun. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We will see you next time.